Welcome to part 3 of the Sally Says project. So as a reminder, the Sally Says project, we have currently gotten it to a state where you can press the different buttons and the buttons will click. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add sound. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to Google search how to add sound. And again, you just type in the language that you're looking to Google, and then the whatever it is that you're trying to find. So here we just typed in jQuery, how to play a sound. Now we're going to try HTML, how to play a sound, and just see what are the different languages and out there that we can use to play a sound in our project. So W3 Schools is always a pretty good one to go to. It looks like this is probably going to work pretty well for us. So we're going to add the sound clips that I downloaded and put into this sounds folder. We're going to add this directly to the HTML file, and then we're going to use JavaScript to actually play each individual file. So this is just a pretty simple tag with audio and then an ID that we're creating for each of the different colors and buttons, and then we're going to apply a sound to each of the different buttons. That way each button will play a different sound. And again, this is all in the sounds folder, and I just downloaded the sounds off the internet. So now we're going to create a function that actually plays the sounds when the button is pressed. So this function is just going to take a color, and then it's going to play the audio clip that is assigned in that HTML file. So we're just going to go here and again just copy the syntax from what we found in our Google search and see if that works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll tinker around with it. So it looks like this is probably going to be the easiest way to play it, is just using JavaScript. And we're going to first get the element ID, which is that source, and we're going to look it up by the ID element. So our audio for the color red, and then we're going to do the same thing for each of the different colors. We're going to store that in a variable, and then we're going to play it using the .play function. So these are all built-in functions with JavaScript. So this is going to make it a lot easier for us to play an audio clip from the HTML file that we created. So that should basically do it. And now we're just going to test it out here by running the function when we press the play game. So it should play the red audio when we click the button. And it looks like it didn't play it, so I'm just going to check real quick to see what we might have done wrong. So it looks like our cases just didn't include the break function. So we're just going to add that in real quick. That way the switch case method actually, or just switch case function actually works. All right, so you can't hear that because I'm wearing headphones, but it looks like it's working now, or it sounds like it's working now. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to just go into the CSS file real quick and just tinker a few things here and there, just make it look a little bit better. And then we're going to copy and paste the button active format. So we're just going to take that and we're going to create a new function in JavaScript to basically run or change the format of the button so that Sally, the computer, can look like she's pressing the button. So we're going to create a new function called Sally Says, and we're going to change the formatting of the button when this function is called. So it's the same CSS formatting. We're going to use jQuery here so that we can actually change the formatting of the button. So because Sally Says is going to do a few different things, it's going to play a sound and press the button. We're just going to create a separate function here for pressing the button just to break it up and make it a little bit easier. And we're going to do the same thing. Press button is going to take a color. We're going to use a switch statement and cases. And then we're going to use jQuery here to change the formatting of the button that's pressed. And again, this is just a jQuery function. So we're just changing it to make sure that the syntax is correct. We're just putting the attribute, the CSS attribute in single quotations, followed by a semicolon, and then single quotations and the value that we're going to be setting it to. And then we're going to add our break. And we're just going to test this out by running Sally says once the user presses play game. And it looks like it was pressed, the shadow's there, but now we also need a function to make the shadow go away. And we're also going to add in the play audio just to get that taken care of. But now what we need to do is we need to make the shadow go away. All right, so we added in a function to, or a line of code to make the shadow go away. The only problem is it made it go away too quickly. So now we are going to try to create a delay function so that it doesn't happen too quickly. So we want the button to get pressed, but then we don't want the shadow to just disappear immediately. We want it to stay there for a minute. So we're just gonna, again, we just Googled it real quick to say JS and then what we were trying to do. And that got us to the set timeout function, which takes in a function and then will delay the playing of the function for 1,000 milliseconds. So just tinkering around with this to make sure we get the syntax correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the audio, then we're going to press the button, and then we're going to change the button to be the unpressed format. And we're just going to go ahead and create this for all the different colors. And what we're going to do is we're going to have one function. We're going to create a new function that's just going to reset all the buttons to the unpressed state. That way we don't have to repeat the code for each of the different colors. And this is just going to reset all the different buttons, so it doesn't need to take in any variables. It's just going to reset all the different colors. All right, so this function is going to play the audio, and we're going to test it out here. We're just going to change the names of these functions to try to make it a little cleaner looking. So now this function is going to be called play game, and we're going to change the other function to we're going to delete that because we don't need it anymore. And again, here we're just going to alert the user what the sequence actually is, but this time instead of telling the user what the color sequence is with letters, we're going to run these functions, play audio, press button, and then reset all the buttons to tell the user that way. That way the user sees which button is being pressed and hears the corresponding sound rather than just reading values from an alert statement. So this should hopefully work. We're going to just go through and see if it looks like we made any mistakes anywhere and try it out. And it looks like it didn't work. So just rereading this to see what we could have possibly done wrong. And it looks like I was using Python syntax instead of JavaScript syntax. So just going to look up real quick the correct syntax and use it for JavaScript. It's very easy when you know a bunch of different languages to forget which syntax is for which language, and it never hurts to Google things really quickly. So just creating a basic for loop here to go through the pattern, which is the colors that Sally says, and then running this function each time for each color of the pattern. And we're just going to change this function a little bit because what was happening is basically every time the function would run, it would press all the buttons at the same time, which made it pretty hard for the user to see what the order of the buttons was. So what we're going to do is we're going to just run this function recursively so that each button is pressed once at a time. So when we press the play game button, it's going to run Sally Says. Sally Says is going to play the audio of the first button and then rerun the same function Sally Says, and it's going to keep on doing that until it goes through all the different colors in the pattern that we give it. And I'm just going to go ahead and create some global variables here just to make sure it runs smoothly. And now we're going to go ahead and test it, and it looks like everything is working correctly now. And just playing it, and it looks like everything is working correctly. So just going to go back in the code, double check to make sure there's nothing else I need to clean up. But this is basically the end of the project. So hopefully this was a fun one for you all, and we will see you in the next video.